analysis. We all understand that in many big companies, there are a position called data scientists. And we have to make our business decision based on data analysis, like what do customers like, what are our customers, are they men or women, what kind of dress they would like to get, what kind of food they need to buy. Those could be answered by data, and many companies set up their own database. They will get the user persona. The better the user persona could be, the better our decision could be. So we have seen a lot of successful example of using user persona, like by Facebook. What about the one in China? I would like to invite Evelyn back on the stage, and she is joined by two experts in data science.
We have Jun Wang from iQiyi, the CFO, and also Chen, who is the founder and chairman of BigOne Lab. There is actually a lot of exciting things going on in data, how you can analyze it and make some money off of it. Maybe Jun can kick it off with some details on how you're looking at data.
Sure. We'll be happy to. Thank you so much for inviting us here. So just a very short disclaimer here. I'm not a data scientist, but I will be love to share my story as a data user, because we do, as an internet company, use the data to support our daily operations and optimize our operational results. From our perspective, I think that as a online video streaming platform with over 700 million active users every month, we do have access to extensive consumer data which generates consumer insights and help us to decide what kind of content will be best and will becoming popular for our users. So this is on one hand. Then on the other hand, as a production powerhouse, we do produce over 50 dramas and over 20 variety shows each year. So we are actively using all these data technology to help us manage the entire process and lower the production costs and improve the efficiency. Then on top of that, we also have data technology to connect the content with the users to make sure the users will be able to find the most favorable content on our platforms. So I think basically, if I can give a nutshell kind of description, this is how we use data in our daily operation.
Got it. And I know for your company, you use a lot of data to produce reports, and you've started writing about them on BigOne. But traditionally, a lot of the analysis has combined some data with also a lot of channel checks in China. Wondering if you've been able to figure out, in this age, how your methodology works for providing insights versus some of the channel checks people have used in the past traditionally.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I've been in data industry for 10 years. It's amazing that China actually has developed its own data market, and at that, the availability of data is enabling a lot of corporates to upgrade their research method. So some of them still rely on traditional channel check, but they also combined the power of data to help them upgrade their decision making. For example, typically when you do channel checks, typically you survey, say, a few hundred, few thousand users, right? You have to call them, you have to ask them questions, things like that. But because so many of this user activity has been digitalized, and there's regulation for you to follow to acquire the data, you can actually ask them to, say, share their wallet receipt from WeChat Pay, Alipay, get their consent, right? Anonymize them and analyze them. The granularity and the detail you have on those data is more powerful. And when you survey them, check them, the user will tell them what they like to tell them. But actually, when you look at their behavior, it might say a different story. So that's just one scenario where data actually augmented what conventional research can provide. And there's many other stories that combining data with traditional research method, you get actually a deeper and more factual insights about the business, about the user, and about the market.
Can you share one example?
Yeah, I think, for example, like when we talk about, I think we did a survey for a tea company, right? Or research a product for a tea company. They want to see, what's the repurchase drivers for them. So one conventionally, when you do that, you have to ask the users, why do you rebuy our stuff? Why do you repurchase our stuff? And they'll tell you, different reasons. But then what we did is actually went on to different e-commerce website, look at the comments, look at the social media expressions, and collect all this data from, I think, all the users that aggregate to about 30, 50,000 individuals commenting why they repurchase the tea. And we put it into keywords and find out that, okay, actually the key element is the packaging and the value to the box for the tea. Instead of what the surveys say, it's just the price. When you go out and ask them, they'll say the price, but it's actually the packaging and the value to the box. Like, okay, this is very beautiful. My mom like it. My parents like this tea. So we actually, share the insight to the brand, to the client, and they focus on that in their marketing strategy, in their product strategy. And we also have their e-commerce GMV data. So that give a feedback on whether that strategy is correct or not. So eventually we see that brands that's focusing on packaging and value to a box are seeing a good, strong repurchase rate. So it just show you that conventional survey might tell you a different way because the way you interact with the subjects. Yeah.
So the data doesn't lie.
Yeah.
Maybe, Wang, you could talk a little bit about how AI is transforming the way that you're looking at all the data within your company, and perhaps even an example of, the role of AI in content production and also making sure people want to watch it.
Sure. I think that I agree with what Mr. Chen just said. Data does not lie, and data do give us a lot of insights about what consumer wants, and sometimes it even tells more story than the consumer realizes. One example, without touching on the AI part, I think one example is that when we look at our consumer data, right, generally speaking, you will find that during the first quarter or the Chinese New Year, the shows that we put on our platform and more in general kind of becoming available in the market were more concentrated on family-friendly topics, animations, the famous titles such as My Heroic Husband, like 赘婿, or Lifelong Journey, 人世间. These family-friendly topics becomes more popular in China. That's simply because it's a family season. Most of people view it from the TV instead of from the mobile. But when it comes down to the summer seasons, actually love stories or the fantasy stories take the dominant role. And this becomes very apparent because most of the audience coming actually from the teenagers. They just have a very busy school time. They want to relax. And naturally, young people are more natural audience for the love stories and fantasy stories. So this is one way that you can see how we can study the data, which translate into our managerial decisions. Then it becomes a more impactful way of delivering the content to the market. And then the employment of AI actually make the entire process even more, I would say, smooth, and to some extent get to a point where we can generate I would say, a effect far beyond our original plan, original, I would say, imagination. One example is that if without AI, traditionally when we do the show, we from the idea to the screen, we probably will experience 3 to 4 major steps, right? From the scripting to the shooting to the post-screen editing, then to the launch. Then by using AI, we can probably shorten the entire production period by somewhere like 30%. And this is something which is very new compared with what we used to.
Great, thanks so much for that example. And so I think data has become such a big part of all our lives. I'm wondering if first you can just talk about maybe one or two trends that you've seen through data about China.
Yeah, I think one really interesting theme what I'm seeing is that over throughout this year, people are talking about China experiencing a consumption downgrade. So the general perception about consumption downgrade is that okay, people are spending less, buying cheaper stuff, right? So you expect that the overall spending is decreasing, but actually when we look at that's true for the overall GMV for product or consumption is still growing at a slower pace, but still growing. And then in terms of consumption change, we realize from the data for some of the category of products, say sports, cosmetics, and actually I think healthcare, right? Daily healthcare stuff products, you see a consumption change. So the price per product that's being sold is cheaper, lower, about 20%, 30% cheaper. But if you multiply by the units sold, so the amount of that people purchase, actually it's bigger. So total GMV, total spending per person on those products actually saw an increase. So that's a really intriguing insight from my perspective that China, even the overarching theme is that consumer market slow down, but within different pockets, you're actually seeing different types of growth. Right? People are getting more value to the bucks, yes, but they are also spending more because the product is more valuable, I say, for the same price. Yeah. So I think that's one trend. And the other trend we're seeing is that again another outside portrait saying that China experiencing high youth unemployment rates, but when we look at that overall employment data, what's interesting is that we are seeing a lot of gig economy, say live streaming hosts, live streaming e-commerce sellers, people that's surrounding doing posting on Xiaohongshu. This job post has seen a strong increase and provide a flexible work demand, and they are growing faster, even though traditional employment creating industry like real estate is basically not providing any job, but then this gig economy is providing a lot of new opportunities. I think that's why because it's more flexible working, it may not be accounted in the statistic bureau. That's why they need to upgrade the method, and that's why the unemployment situation may not be as bad because these people are still working and generate incomes, but not in a sitting in office full-time job perspective. Yeah.
And data has been also a big issue in China overall this year. I mean, we're getting some indications that for foreign businesses on data, there might be some easing in the rules around how they can transport that data. China's also talking about a new national data bureau. Can you help us understand, what's the regulatory view on data right now?
Yeah, we actually inside China we're really excited about this data market because the government actually started in 2019 categorizing data as a production factor for the whole economy. So that's the highest categorization you can get for a production factor or for resources. And after that, they actually implement not just red light policies, but also green light policies. So that's one thing that we need to focus. Is that they have green light, red light, but most of the attention pays to the red light policies because it captures more attention. But in the green light policy, they also develop data exchanges. They actually are looking into accounting-wise, counting data as an asset. Some of the banks are trying to experiment using data as a collateral for a loan. So that's really exciting. That's they are both putting up regulations so that you can actually marketize, commercialize data in a proper way. And on the same time, what we need to also focus on is that the Data Bureau is a unit under the National Reform and Development Council. So that department is in charge of developing, the economy, developing different business line, rather than other just policy making department. So it's a good news that the Data Bureau is under the NRDC, so that that means government wants to develop it. And when we see what's on the ground, we're seeing that they're also pushing policy to encourage different government, local government to encourage the development of this industry and different players within the industry.
Another concern for investors, I think, is profitability. And for iQiyi, I think for years, people have been wondering when all of the revenue and the cost, how that's going to work out. How do you expect data to help you move that?
I love the question, because the good news first, we are profitable now, compared with the stereotype concept that we have been money losing. And secondly, behind this turnaround, we certainly see the value of data. As we explained, the key of our profitability relies on the fact that we will be able to produce blockbuster shows, right? And for each blockbuster shows, you always hope that you can produce more popular show or more profitable show this year than last year, and even going forward. So how can you do this? I mean, this is probably one of the most difficult things, because you do not really have the crystal ball in front of you to tell you, like, you can just use this director, use this star, and this can promise you a box office about $200 million, which is close to impossible, right? So one way to do it is actually you develop a system. You develop a system warehousing all the shows that you have produced. You carefully look into each show to see how they contribute to your returns. Then you try to make better shows by learn, not only by identifying success factors, but also by identifying what is the mistakes that you should not make again. And this is where I think that Charlie Munger has made a great remark, very similar to investment. It's remarkable to generate long-term advantage by consistently avoiding making mistakes, avoiding being stupid, rather than becoming intelligent. And
So
this is our approach.
Your most popular show this quarter?
For this year, no surprise, I think most people in China will enjoy Knockout, 狂飙, right? And for me, the best is always the next show. So please put us on the watch list, and I will do a small commercial here.
And Mucho, what has your data shown that people are interested in entertainment in China?
I think we focus on
just say iQiyi.
iQiyi. I was saying, yeah. I believe, my personal belief with long form would be iQiyi, right? It's advertised. But in terms of, I think we are seeing more and more attention being put in the short form videos. That's just an observation, right? But also, I think it's a cycle. Now also short form video is also going back to longer time, longer form, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, self-training, self-caring kind of contents, wealth management content, self-improvement content. So if you look at the bigger macro environment, that actually is not surprising. But what's surprising is that people actually now, given the slower growth rate, people are able to be more patient. I think that's good news to a long form video. Yeah, so that's what our observation is. Yeah.
Got it. Well, we'll have to leave it there, but I just want to add a note for anyone who does not know what the knockout is. To me, it's kind of the godfather in Chinese, and I guess your data showed that that's something people are interested in. Thank you so much for both of your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
好的，再次感谢。
Once again, I would like to give our gratitude to Evelyn and her panel. Before moving on to the next panel discussion, let's take a break.